Here I am sitting in a prison cell on my last day in prison. In fact, I am very glad to be here at the end of my sentence. I have learned a lot from the old-timers here. I think the story that brought me to this time and place is very interesting. It started when Sally, my wife, and I moved into a swanky new house in a new town on the outskirts of London. It was full of young and up-and-coming people just like ourselves. It was fun to socialize with each other. There were single guys and single girls, but mostly married couples and those who just live together and don't want to get married. On weekends, there were parties at someone's house. We were all young, energetic, up-and-coming middle managers in various law firms, advertising, and real estate agencies. I was an aircraft mechanic and even made it to supervisor before I discovered I had a knack for sweet-talking people into spending more than they needed on a house and selling them a mortgage at a favorable rate, which was good for me anyway. Sally was a small-time sales manager at an advertising agency. We were all quite well off and life was good. We often gathered at the local wine bar on Friday afternoons to whine about customers who didn't know they were being scammed and pat each other on the back. One Friday, I called Sally to let her know I wouldn't be there until 3 or 4 o'clock. I had some stupid customers to catch up with, and I'd see her there when I was done. I pulled up to the bar just after 4 o'clock, and the usual crowd was gathered there. Sally was nowhere to be seen, so I asked one of the girls where she was. She wasn't feeling well, and Gerald took her home. Sally and Gerald worked at the same agency, so they were somewhat friendly. And it was Gerald, not Jerry or Jer, but Gerald. The problem was that Gerald was a bit of a womanizer and a bit of a jerk when it came to women. He had the attitude, "I'm God's gift to women," and some women seemed to agree with him. We've all seen the drunken fights between Gerald and his wife Fiona over his flirting. Perhaps it wasn't just flirting. They had been married less than 2 years, although they had been together for several years. This is not a marriage made in heaven. Sally and I thought that God's gift to women paled a bit with Fiona. Feeling a little discouraged, I drove home. Gerald's car wasn't nearby, nor was Sally's. She was probably still at work or in the bar parking lot, and Gerald would have driven home in his. Assuming that my wife wasn't feeling well upstairs in bed, I approached the house with some caution, opened the front door, and went upstairs, hearing those sounds that no married man wants to hear unless he's involved. "Oh, yeah, stop, we don't have to do this. Whoa, if Mike catches us, he'll kill us, but it feels so good." I pulled out my cell phone and turned on the video, carefully opening the bedroom door to see Sally lying on her back and a naked Gerald having her on our bed, with Sally's legs behind his back. Shit. I shot a few seconds of video to have grounds for divorce and turned my phone off. The first thing I wanted to do was throw up. The second was to do some damage. The second part was easy. I went to the spare bedroom and pulled out my old cricket bag. I pulled out my cricket stick and walked over to our bedroom. They were still having fun. With a heavy thump, I swung the door open. The look on their faces was amazing. Gerald's face became even more amazed when the club hit him sideways in the chest and he flew off the bed into the wall. I grabbed Sally by her long hair and threw her off the bed and into the corner next to him, yelling, "What the hell are you doing?" Like I can't see. "Mike, baby, things aren't what they seem." "Oh yeah, it's exactly what it looks like. You're having that damn whore in our bed." Gerald was already standing, holding his ribs. I grabbed him by his long blonde hair and threw him into the bedroom chair. "Sit here before that cricket stick makes contact with your balls." I pulled out my phone, showed him the video I had recorded, and said, "Sit here or I'll send this video to your wife." I looked at my wife lurking in the corner, shook the cricket stick in front of her face, and said, "If you move, that stick is going to get on your pretty face and you're going to look bloody ugly by the time I'm done." Nasty, disgusting thoughts visited me. That asshole will be afraid for the rest of his life. He'll never go near my wife again. I went downstairs and got the rope, a 2-inch wide black tape and wire, the kind we use in airplanes to keep nuts and bolts from unscrewing. It's stainless steel, about 0.5 millimeter thick, similar to cheese wire. The wire worn on the holder is for cutting cheese. When I got back upstairs, Gerald was still sitting in the chair and Sally was still crying in the corner. I told Sally to tape Gerald's body to the chair and secure his arms to the chair. She did exactly as I told her and then went back to her corner. I then got a piece of rope, tied it to Gerald's left ankle, ran it across his hips, tied it to his right ankle, and tightened it. His heels were tucked up on either side of the chair, almost touching his thighs. This is the most unpleasant part. I took a piece of steel wire, wrapped one piece around one ankle, then ran it up his thigh, up to his other ankle, and wrapped it around the rope tied to his ankle. His legs were now held together by the rope, and if the rope broke, he would lose all of his man parts. I pulled out my Swiss Army knife, opened the big blade, put it under the rope, looked him in the eye, and said, "Do you know what will happen if I cut this rope?" Through the tears that were now streaming down his face, he nodded. I think he realized what he had gotten himself into. In fact, it's too much. I wrapped the wire around his right ankle in a single coil so that if the rope broke, it would scare the shit out of him. But it wouldn't do much physical damage. I just wanted the bastard to be afraid for his livelihood. I won't gain anything by completely crushing him. I think some Roman said that centuries ago. Now, to pour salt on the wound, I told Sally to call Gerald's wife, Fiona. She could be testy, but I wasn't going to do this alone. I heard Sally say to Fiona, "Can you come over to my house? It's very important." Through the speaker, I heard, "No, sorry, I'm a little busy right now." Sally said, "You have to come over." "No, sorry, I'm busy, yeah." I took the phone from Sally and said, "Fiona, I've just discovered Gerald in my bed having fun with Sally. I think you should come over." The phone went silent very quickly. It was about 45 meters from their house to ours, and by the time I got downstairs, the front door had nearly come off its hinges when Fiona burst in. "Where the fuck are they?" she shouted. Not wanting to intrude, I said, "Upstairs." She stormed into our bedroom like a tornado, and all she saw was Gerald tied to a chair, his ankles on either side of his hips, and a piece of cheese wire wrapped around his man parts. She immediately started going at him. "What the hell, not again?" "No, no, no," he said. "I told you I'd cut your balls off next time, and here we are. Here." I was amazed at her next actions. Fiona snatched the knife from me and slid it under the rope. "Okay, you asshole, tell me about each and every date you've slept on since we've been together." He turned gray. She pulled out her cell phone and started walking around him taking videos. He was in no position to argue. You could see he was scared. "So, let's name names." And he started spilling out everything he knew. Girls from work, neighbors, friends. Fiona sat on the bed with a look of confusion on her face that soon turned to disgust. "These are my girlfriends. You have my girlfriends." She looked at me with pleading eyes and said, "Can I have a drink of water? This is too much." I went to the bathroom and got her a glass of water and handed it back to her. She was standing next to Gerald with a knife in her hand. She drank the glass in one go, probably wishing it was gin or vodka. I looked at him. "How many times with that slut?" Pointing at Sally. "This is the first time, honestly. We were just chatting about sex and got carried away. About the first time I kind of believed him since he was threatened, but I'm not sure about the rest." Standing in front of him, Fiona said, "Okay, you asshole, you're hiding something. What's that?" Her face lowered. "That's not all. I think you're lying. I've been with you for so long, and I know when you're lying, okay?" Then she held the knife back out to the rope. "Tell me, cunt, or you'll become a eunuch. Actually, you'll become more than a eunuch. At least they had a tool left to piss on." "Promise me you won't do it if I tell you to," he said, looking down at his genitals. "I promise," she replied. Okay, that was Felicity. "What? My sister, you asshole. When did this happen?" "At the wedding. At the one last month?" Lowering his gaze, he nodded at his clamped appendages and said, "Promise not to do that?" "I promise now, get to it." "What wedding?" "It was just ours and Felicity's last month." You could see the light go on in Fiona's head. "Our wedding," he nodded, still looking down at the ground. "Weddings, plural?" He nodded. "What? And hers, too?" He nodded again. "I'll remember that moment for the rest of my life. It all happened like it was in slow motion." Fiona leaned into his face and whispered, "You cheated. I lied." The knife came up and cut the rope. Gerald's legs collapsed to the floor. I saw the wire cut into the flesh of his thighs. This shouldn't have happened, I thought to myself. The wire should have come apart. Then I saw his genitals flying around the room in a spray of blood. That sight will haunt me until the day I die. And the screaming was probably the loudest I'd ever heard, and I worked on jet-powered airplanes. A thought flashed through my head. Damn, now I'm going to have to change the carpet and the bed. Then my trauma training kicked in. I rushed past him into the bathroom, tipping him over onto his back. I couldn't lift the injured area, but I could stop gravity. The screaming stopped. He had either passed out from the pain or I had knocked him out. I grabbed towels, went back and applied them to the wound, yelling to Sally, "More towels and call an ambulance." There was nothing else I could do but put pressure on the wound, and then I noticed Fiona had her phone pressed to her ear. "Okay, now the bastard's shutting up." There was a pause while she listened. "Yes, I get it. Keep your body parts cool, not cold, not in the freezer. I have just the right amount." Clasping her thumb and forefinger, she took Gerald's appendages and went into the bathroom. Good idea. Cold water is probably the best thing we can do at the moment, I thought, and then I heard the toilet flush. Shit, did she just flush his junk down the toilet? She went back into the bedroom and said to the person on the phone, "Done it. Now everything is nice and calm." Another pause. "No, not a game. That bastard cheated on me. He won't do it again, will he?" And she laughed. More towels. Now he looked very pale. The police were the first to arrive. A young constable came through the bedroom door and said, "What's going on?" And his actions didn't end there as his dinner joined the mess on my already filthy carpet. Fortunately, paramedics were made of sturdier stuff and had probably seen it all before. "Well done, buddy. Now we've got it covered. You may have saved his life." "Where are the body parts?" he asked. "I think she flushed them down the toilet." Fiona nodded. "Oh, shit," came the reply. She must have been really pissed off. Sleeping with her wife's sister at her and her own wedding was what had pissed her off. Fiona was escorted to the police car. Sally and I were asked to accompany the police officers to the station after Sally got dressed. The interview with the police officers was fairly straightforward. I told them exactly what had happened from my point of view, including that the wire had not been twisted but should have come off. Fiona told them her story, and luckily for me, she admitted that she had tightened the wire as it was starting to fall off, and she didn't want to ruin the illusion. She was only a woman. How would she know how to tighten a cheese wire? No one believed her, but there was no way to prove it. I went to jail for 3 years for incarceration. I was lucky with the judge. I found out later that his wife was cheating on him. Otherwise, I might have gotten a longer sentence. I guess it helped that I saved his life by what I did. I only served 18 months. There was no charge of bodily harm because I pleaded temporarily insane after discovering that one of our friends was having my wife. Fiona got probation for illegally disposing of human body parts or something like that, and was forced to see a psychiatrist. Sally was the innocent party and wasn't charged with anything. I divorced Sally, and it happened while I was in jail. Sally lost her house because she couldn't keep up the payments without my paycheck. She almost lost her job because Gerald worked at the same place. Epilogue. My stay in prison was pretty easy. Medical care, television, reasonable food, and when asked why I was in prison, I told the other inmates that I had cut off the privates of a man I caught sleeping with my wife. A bit of a lie, but I said it. I kinda got some respect. I got out of jail on a bright sunny morning with a train ticket in my pocket as they found me a job up north. I was surprised to see Sally waiting for me. She had only visited me twice since the divorce became final. Despite the warm day, she was dressed in a belted raincoat, and I had a feeling I knew where this was going, as it was one of my fantasies. As I approached her, I was convinced I was right. She carefully unbuckled her belt and gradually unzipped the raincoat, holding it in front of her so that I could see that she was naked except for her stockings and suspender belt. She closed the raincoat, leaving her large cleavage exposed. As I approached her, she slipped her hand into mine and we continued walking. She said, "Hi, honey, now you're out. I'm going to start making it up to you. I have a hotel room booked right around the corner." I was looking forward to a few beers after being away for 18 months, but I could get beer anytime, but sex was more difficult. I looked at her and said, "Lead the way, my lady." As we walked, she said to me as if trying to make a point before we reached the hotel, I know we are divorced, but I want to make it up to you. I love you, and I know I made a big mistake. I don't know what came over me. It's all my fault, and I have to take all the blame. It was just fun. It didn't mean anything. You can find a way to forgive me, please. I'll prove that I can be faithful. I know it won't be easy for you to trust me again, but please try. I muttered unintelligibly. Please just think about it, she asked, and I hummed again. We headed to the hotel, and from the looks we met at the front desk, I realized it was quite common for people to get out of jail and jump straight into a hotel room. She swiped her card, and we entered the room. There was a bottle of gin and several bottles of tonic on the dresser. She smiled and said, "You'd better get undressed while I get us some drinks." There was no grace in that. I drank the gin with relish, then ripped off her coat and threw it on the bed. I rolled off her and said, "Thank you, I enjoyed it." I took a leisurely sip from my glass of G&T and then looked at her and said, "Where do you think we should go next?" She lay in my arms, looked me in the eyes and said, "I know it's my fault. I hurt you. I should have said no, but I got carried away and it won't happen again. I can promise you that." "But I heard you say he was good. He was better than me." "No, he wasn't as good as you. He was shoddy. I was trying to boost his ego so he'd be stronger. He's no match for you." I thought to myself, not anymore. "So you risked our marriage for a little fun and he wasn't even as good as me. That's very disappointing." "I know I was wrong. It was my mistake. What do I have to do to get back in your life? I have been celibate for the last 18 months since that day. I don't want anyone else. I only want you. I know it won't be easy for you to forgive me. I'm not sure you can. But I won't stand up again. Twice bitten. I'm not going to risk losing you again. I'm not likely to make the same mistake twice. Can we try, please? Can we at least try?" I let her finish her little speech. When you work as a real estate agent and executive, you become a bit of a psychologist and learn to read people by their actions and words. Looking at her, I said, "I think I've rested enough. Let's do it again." I got off her and went to the bathroom to take a shower. When I came back, I could tell she wanted more, and she had that token, sweet, sexy look that I knew so often when she wanted something. I looked at my watch and started to get dressed, making her kneel down so we were the same height. "Are you leaving?" I looked at her. She was embarrassed, but very sweet. Her breasts still looked as lovely as they had 18 months ago. I could get used to having her every day and having her as I please. "Yes, I have a train to catch." "But why?" I looked at her and answered, "The prison found me a job at an estate agency in Merseyside. It's just paperwork for now, but I think I can make a success of it. I'll think about your offer." By then I had dressed, and reaching the door, I opened it. I looked back at her and said, "It would be easier for me to decide in your favor if you apologized." I heard her shout no as I closed the door. I lied, took the train to Lincoln, and went back to my job as an aircraft mechanic. It didn't pay as much as real estate agency, but at least the people weren't jerks. The last I heard of Fiona was that she was dating a biker and Gerald was now called Geraldine. Not Jerry, not Jer, but Geraldine.